Hello, this is Lisa Harrison, and today is Monday, the 30th of July, 2012. And today I'm speaking with Laura Magdalena Eisenhower. Is that how you pronounce the next second name, Magdalena? Or do you say
Or
Magdalene?
Magdalene.
Magdalene.
Magdalene. Mhm.
It just kind of rolls off the tongue. It's a very nice name.
Oh, thanks.
Thanks. Now, we've spoken once before on Oculus Radio program that we were guests on, and that was a brilliant show, by the way. Lots of great information came out on that day, and really resonated a lot with much of what you said. But there was one comment that you made, and before we even get on to what I'd like to talk to you about, I just wanted to cover that off because there's so much talk right now about Obama, and you, excuse me, you made the comment that you're inclined to think that he might in fact be a good guy. Um, you still feel that way, and what's leading you to that?
Well, I mean, that's a really good question. The more I sort of research and learn and see sort of different patterns repeating itself in history, the more I have an openness towards, a statement like that, or I feel comfortable saying it. I mean, I tend to like to give the benefit of the doubt, to anybody that doesn't have a solid history, like, say, the Bushes, where it's just kind of obvious the roots of that family line. Obama's a little bit more mysterious, so in that sort of gray area, I give him somewhat the benefit of the doubt, but I'm just as much leaning towards, a total contradiction of that statement. Now, the reason I have a positive thought about it is because a lot of people's research seems to be, pointing at that, even Matthew's messages, so I'm open to it. When the campaign first started, I got a good feeling from certain things that he said, but I've kind of abandoned the government a long time ago. I'm not really into politics anymore, and I really, don't even vote. So I don't say any comment based on, oh, I'm going to go out and vote for him. It's more, until I'm truly convinced, I'm sort of staying out of it, and I'm not truly convinced yet. What I am open to is the fact that there are clones, and what I found out the other day, which might not be true, but I'm open to as well, until I have solid proof, I can only be open, of course, that Ike actually had clones. There's a former white hat confession guy, and I know a lot of people probably think he's nonsense, but I have been reading some of his stuff, and some stuff does resonate. He said that Eisenhower was fighting the cabal, but there were clones of him, and I guess those clones stepped in to perhaps do or make decisions that he wouldn't have agreed with, and that supposedly he killed his clones before leaving office, and then warned us about the military-industrial complex, of course, in his speech, and warned Kennedy or briefed Kennedy about what was going on. Now, that is something I'm open to. I don't have a fixed belief about it, so I'm thinking, hearing about Obama's clones or whatever, there's a possibility that the person that we see is not really him, and that he might be dealing with some other kind of struggle between, good and evil, and where, they're wanting to direct his soul or his energies. I don't know that, but I do know that he is part of a CIA project, and that Andrew Basiago was in a training program with him to teleport to Mars. And during that time, his name is Barry Soetoro. Now, for anybody who hasn't heard any of this sounds like, oh my God, what is she talking about? There's a lot of layers to it, but
Well, I did. I have actually interviewed Brett Stillings once already, and we went over that. And I'm talking to to Andrew Basiago and Bernie, the third whistleblower, to come out this week. So we're going to go over that a bit more. But so you're saying the whole conspiracy about who Obama really is, the birth certificate, the was he here, was he there, where was he born, where did he really go to school? Because it's all so grey,
right.
it actually does leave a lot of holes and a lot of opportunity for him to not just be yet another party puppet.
Right, right. And even though he was groomed to be a party puppet, I sometimes have to wonder that, maybe there is a walk-in or some sort of scenario or organic soul quality to him that actually wants to fight what he was set up to be. And, Andrew Basiago was able to do that and is doing that. And wake up from the fact that he was expected to go in a certain direction and then is able to be a whistleblower. The fact that his soul agreement or the quality of him as a being was able to recall memories and see through everything, why not Obama? Because they were both in a training program together. The difference might be that Andrew Basiago has access to his memories and Obama doesn't just yet. So I can only hold out hope because I want to, give him positive energy. But, at this point, I think it could go either way. And I think the program version is always going towards the dark, but the true nature of, I think, who they really are, most beings, is one of goodness, unless they are in the circle of the ringleaders or the beings that are behind these agendas. Most other people are victims, or they've just been taken over, or they've been cloned. So, I always hold just hope for any being. And with Obama, based on just Andrew's strength to break through the programmings and just speak the truth about what he went through, I see Obama does have that potential, regardless of the fact that he was groomed to be, a puppet. Who knows? He could just break through all of that and all of a sudden do something wonderful. So I can only hope for that. But
well, I think we all hope for that. And that goes for not just him, but for anybody in his situation.
Absolutely. Everybody, is susceptible to being controlled and possessed, and everybody's capable of waking up and getting on track. So I think the best thing we can do for anybody in his position or similar positions is to just send them positive energy and hope that they can, see through it and do the right thing.
Do you have any personal experience with cloning programs?
No, and this is a challenge for me in so many ways because I'm trying to, I've done a lot of research, I've read a lot, and kind of wondering, what is that clone and what kind of energy is that? I know they can download memories into a clone, or, certain things they have mimicking technologies in order to, I guess, create the facade that it's really that person. And, a person can have a number of clones, and I guess the clones can be killed, but then there's the original copy that is either taken for negative reasons or taken for protection, depending on what side of the game they're playing. But I've never had experience with it. I've never been in a project to the point of understanding the nature of the agendas, except for the recruitment, but I was very much on the outside. I was only getting information based on what the partner or agent who had a handler was telling me. I didn't have direct access to the project or the program direction or any of that stuff.
Have you ever met anyone that you thought, you're not the real deal? You're a photocopy?
Yeah, I mean, most ex-boyfriends, I'm like, because I've already been exposed to a lot of this type of stuff, and I was lured into the Mars recruitment, by an ex-partner, who was an agent that I wouldn't say I thought he was cloned, but I could tell he had, more than one personality, and he must have had alters because, after studying a lot about mind control and what they do, they can activate a certain personality or alter. That really rang true to what I was experiencing. As far as, copies, there's been relationships after him that I'm thinking, one day they're acting like this, the next day they're totally different. Now, is this multiple personality stuff, or is this a clone? And so because I got more exposed to just the whole concept of cloning, I have wondered, and sometimes I really, mess with my own head. And
you must be really wary about getting involved with anyone at the moment.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And it's almost like wanting to put a little mark, just little my own personal tattoo on the person just in case, so I can check, the next day and make sure it's still the same copy. I mean, it's weird. I have to think like it's sort of a bummer, but this is the nature of how the dimensional energy is playing out. Because all the technologies are mimicking technologies from the originator and generators. And there's only certain dimensions that those technologies can even work. And we're going way beyond that. So I think this whole weirdness of clones and everything, hopefully will be passing away for those who have initiated themselves out of this matrix.
I've always got several working hypotheses running at any one time. And what's evolving for me at the moment is that all of the information that we're being fed, and I mean all of it, is either true, there's truth in it, or it's all a complete and utter diversion. That, whether we've got some object out in space right now that may or may not be a planet, may or may not be a spaceship, the mass arrests, the cataclysms, the 2012 equals the end of the world, actually that all of it is nothing but a lie and a diversion. Because when I look at what the indigenous, from all cultures, but I'm sort of learning more and more about what's going on here in Australia, their ideas about what's happening, and they are one of the few people, in fact, possibly the only people, who I know for a fact genuinely predicted an event that came off and understood the meaning of it. And that was an earthquake. And they knew a month before it was coming. And they knew the exact spot. And, we're hearing constantly about, whether or not the Galactic Federation are going to make, disclosure happen, or whether they're going to show themselves, and whether we're going to get mass sightings. And what if none of it is anything but a diversion?
Well, see, I kind of live with that thought in mind because I don't give a whole lot of attention to any of it. I mean, I'm not an expert in, channeling or what the Galactic Federation has to say, or, what this race or that race. I mean, I've just sort of bypassed it all. And, my focus, and I'm not saying everybody should be like me, but for me personally, I kind of resonate with that because I feel the only safe place to go is our own connection to Source and our connection to Gaia. And Sophia Gaia, just, the goddess energy morphed into our physical planet, also, embodied in our feminine energy and masculine as well, depending on how far back we take it as far as the androgyny in the beginnings, without necessarily a name at all, because the names can kind of get in the way. But I guess, to me, when we're dealing with mimicking technologies and sort of virtual reality stuff and time travel, Andrew even, has mentioned something about this, that these are synthetic environments, that these are all, created just to, take our creative energy and our belief systems and our power so that we either self-annihilate ourselves because of what we're being fed, or we manifest and feed the very technologies that give us this by being open to the timeline that supports this level of illusion or delusion, I guess you could say. So I'm not really connecting to any of it, and it's not like I consider none of it real. I know that it's real, but I see it holographic, sort of virtual reality real. I don't see it organic at all.
It's one big holodeck that we're being tricked into going in and playing in.
Right, and there's some organic beings outside of that, but because these are mimicking technologies, it's like I don't even want to get too much in touch with any of it until I'm kind of feel free of just the chaos of this one and how much deception there is. So, people might say, oh, you said on the radio you don't believe in extraterrestrials. I mean, that's not what I mean. But in this particular matrix, I'm not buying much of anything.
Yeah, I know how you feel. So when you tap into your own source and go into your own heart, what do you feel this paradigm, this 2012 paradigm is all about? And where do you think we're going?
Well, I think, this is a window period where the natural stargates are opening. They've been trying to shut it down. In a lot of ways, the Ascension timeline has been hijacked and infiltrated by what Lisa Renee calls and others have called black hole technology, based on, a Nephilim reverse grid or something to change the axis of the Earth and keep us from having, a 12-strand DNA activation potential. And, I take that with a grain of salt. So when I sort of define that in my own terms, I see that the world is lost in a programming and in belief systems that they're all pretty much in agreement with, despite the differences in religion and all that kind of stuff. It's the attention people give the Queen of England. It's the attention people are still giving the governments. It's the division that they're still carrying by not really embracing the unity that we should all be embracing. So no matter what people are believing and how different it is, they're all buying into some level of separation and some level of programming that is leading them right into a trap. And I would say the masses are on that path. But is an opening and an organic ascension timeline that is still there. And so this window period is a time when that, I guess you could say, natural stargate is open and safely open for those who are ready to leave this one to venture through. But the level of manipulation is so strong compared to a normal ascension path that it takes a really awake, really strong being to not get caught in some of the traps and deceptions out there because, the higher dimensions and the new age stuff has been messed with too. So, there's a fine line between being able to stay anchored on well, people like Ashiana Deanna are saying it's inscension, not ascension anymore, because the numbers are so small that are going to be able to leave. But I guess what I'm seeing.
What do you mean by leave? Define leave.
Leave is in, woo, we're floating away and this kind of fluffy ascension stuff. But, shift in dimensional energies to where the outcome of this 3D reality is not playing out for some beings that are still on an ascension course to continue to initiate into higher dimensional energies, where there is that doorway open during this shift time. This window period between 2000 and 2017 are supposedly the numbers. I've heard different ones starting in 1998 as well, but I think that's part of just the initial opening. But the other one is the artificial timeline, which is taking beings that are going to stay in the 3D mentality and still in duality, that they, aren't experiencing a natural ascension because, in a sense, they've fallen into the spider web or the trap. They've already bought into the programming so much that there is no real organic process to wake them up. They need, almost an intervention of saying, you got to realize you're being lied to and that this is deception. This is not, religion all of a sudden evolving to a unified awareness. This is like people who are getting involved in certain religions or cults or sects are basically losing their souls and being siphoned into an artificial timeline because these things have been infiltrated to where they're a dead end instead of a natural unfolding of consciousness. Because in the ascension timeline, religion would be like the training wheels for people to start to understand spirituality. But because of time travel and all this infiltration, it's become such a trap that there is no real safe evolution out of it unless one really wakes up to the lies and the facade that is being played out. So what would be a normal ascension process for the collective, a huge portion of that has been hijacked, but there is still the opportunity to move into a higher dimensional level. But it takes a lot of deprogramming and a lot of self-awareness and a lot of inner soul work to really enable that, because we're much more challenged because of these intruder races. And, because everything's one, we don't want to say, oh, we've been intruded or these are aliens. We want to take responsibility and recognize that we're seeing the shadow of humanity play out based on making choices that are more ego-based and self-serving that have allowed this to happen. So it's not like, oh, we're victims. I mean, we have to understand that why have we gotten this far and why is it as bad as it is? And I'm not buying into the negatives or the bad, but that's the level of what the traps are like. There's still an opportunity, though, for liberation, but it takes, a very strong soul to be able to see that direction.
It sounds like the chicken or the egg.
One.
I mean, were we influenced to go down a path of service to self, which has led to where we're at now, or did we somehow end up on that path on our own, which has led to influences, which has taken us further down that path? It's sort of the chicken or the egg. Which one came first?
And it's also ancient that, we have to understand that these are, in a sense, our forefathers on a god-goddess level, which all returns to source creator, which is where our oneness is. And so if we separate and we wait for, a savior, or, we see these battles outside of ourselves, we never initiate ourselves out of the traps because we're not identifying with it on an archetypal inner, level. We're sort of seeing it outside of ourselves. And so I guess what has really lit up me as being a strong message to share is that to sort out all this outer stuff, we have to find that, and I know I'm not the only one who says it, but, having that archetypal harmony within ourselves, understanding that all these forces exist within us. We get to decide how we work them within our own nature, and then when we find that wholeness and we integrate and we work with these energies to decide what's really in charge in our own beings, then we offer a gift to humanity to help transform it. If our ego's running the show, that's not going to do it. If our higher self is informing the ego and we are in unity consciousness, our spiritual or religious beliefs don't even matter because that's all distraction. If we just understand it's about unity, then we can put down the books and put down the arguments about God and just really just get the message and drop the rest.
So, when it comes to the ascension process itself, I'm inclined to believe at this point, for a number of reasons, that the physical body is, we talk about it being a vessel for holding soul mass, that what what this ascension process is actually an opportunity to anchor more of ourselves into these vessels, that these vessels are evolving to hold more soul mass. And And with that comes awakened DNA. It comes, the abilities that we have in a fourth and fifth dimensional realm. We're anchoring those abilities within the third. And to me, ascension isn't about going anywhere. It's about being very, very present on the planet and one with the planet and having more of me present.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's exactly what it is. And that's why it's about the inner work, because it's about clearing the toxins, clearing the past, the programmings, the toxic emotions out, and making more room for spirit to come in, because that's what the physical body is. It's a vessel for our spirit energy. And it's extremely important to be grounded and anchored, because the organic ascension timeline is working with Gaia. It's working with the cosmos. It's working with nature. And so that's absolutely, the earth is shifting energies shift, because we're absolutely connected to all these different things. The artificial timeline is more that virtual reality being played out, where people are plugged into sort of the supercomputer, beast computers, the chips, and all these different gray alien technologies. But that's not natural at all. So we're not leaving. It's more, a lot of people are taking off onto a whole nother timeline that's not even natural. And those that are on the organic ascension timeline, it's based on their connection to Earth. It's based on their chakra systems and their energy being able to receive who they are, which activates the DNA, which, and it's all connected to the Kundalini, of course. And it's very much that process. And so, the reptilian energy is a lower octave of the serpentine Kundalini energy. And so, that service to self type stuff, leads one on the same kind of false path that the ego does, where it's about fame, or it's about, all these other things that aren't really connected to bringing in our abilities. It's kind of taking something outside of ourselves to supplement something in us to make us feel like we've gained, rather than relying on our own inner abilities and our own consciousness to provide us abundance and to take us exactly where we need to be, where our wealth is in our spirituality and what we're, manifesting, rather than what you're winning or succeeding in based on competition and, just, going about it the wrong way just for gain. And that's not a natural, timeline, but it's just as unnatural as the ego. But in the larger picture, it's all kind of natural to the alchemy that each of us is up against, and the necessity of integrating ego with our spirit nature. And once we do that, we kind of divert ourselves from the artificial timeline, and we're really, with Mother Gaia, and we're with the cosmos, and we're not ascending out of here. We're more shifting the dreamscape, the landscape of our dreaming, our lucid dreaming, into a higher frequency that provides a different reflection than the duality that we're all seeing. Because this is, in a sense, a school, of course. Some of us have come to help and, remember certain lessons and this and that, and others, still stay stuck in the duality. But, I think we feel that we all eventually get there. We're just moving at different speeds, and some people play the dark role to help people wake up, and but some of it's just so dark that it just seems like a parasitic cancer that's just eating away at our potential. But
yeah, and that's what this time is all about, really. It's healing ourselves and the planet of that parasitic cancer.
yeah. And so I'm glad you're saying all this, because I'm not into the transcendent ascension out of here stuff. But yeah, I'm it's a full thing. It's like the tree of life. It's got a root system, and it opens up to the heavens. It's not about leaving or ascending out of here or transcendence. It's about transmutation, facing energies and taking them to a higher level. That's how we shift things. But I say that there are some, that aren't going to be in this process with us, that are probably going to be in this sort of artificial matrix for a little bit, but for however long they need until they get it. But I don't see enslavement and they're stuck forever in a hell that is eternal at all. I just, no.
No, I mean, we're seeing people leave in ever-increasing numbers. The murder-suicide rate's gone up. The suicide rate's exploded. The fatal diseases with very short I'm sorry, you've got something and you'll be dead within a month. That kind of stuff has gone through the roof. Sudden death has gone through the roof. These, to me, are ways in which people are choosing to opt out. and not
Yeah.
go through this natural organic process. And I'm not trying to make anybody wrong or any belief system wrong. I'm just talking about what I resonate with. And if if somebody's really hanging out there for the Galactic Federation of Light Bulbs or whatever they want to call themselves to come and get them and take them away, um, then I guess that's their story and that's what they signed up for to a certain degree. It doesn't feel like mine.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm absolutely devoted to Mother Earth. I mean, that's why. Yeah, I mean, I'm just being more grounded than I've ever been in my life, even though I've got a little ways to go. Um, just has to do with moving a lot of energy to make me feel like I could exist here despite all the hardships and coldness and cruelty. It's because the more we anchor our energies, the more we change what's around us. We can't escape it. We don't run from it, and we don't, fall into the traps and the deceptions either. But we learn lessons by putting our foot in both. But the whole idea is to not get lost in either one of it because we really need to be here now. We can learn a lot from leaving a little bit or not fully being in there. We can learn from, lessons and mistakes or so-called never going to do that again type scenarios. But, if one goes too far in either direction, that's not balance. And I'm all about the alchemical marriage and bringing the polarities together in order to, have that new energy burst forth.
Mm-hmm.
That's organic, but it's based on a commitment within. It's not like we can just sit there and not participate and it's just going to happen. A lot of people are like, what's going to happen? What are you going to allow happen? What are you going to co-create into happening is more how I see it. There's not like a fixed anything. It's like how we experience it and what we choose to commit to within ourselves is what determines what we're going to experience. And that's what I see this whole window period about. I mean, I can get into the darkness of these conspiracies and these agendas or, the nature of what the organic timeline looks like. But at the same time, I see so many different things in between. And it's just our job to sort out and find some level of honesty with what those energies are saying and, to prepare the body,
Yep.
affect,
Yeah,
the
I think a
physical.
lot of people are sort of sitting back thinking, well, this is all going to happen anyway. I've just got to, ride out the next 6 months until the event, whatever that event is, um, because it's going to happen to them. And I don't think that's the role we're supposed to play here. I think we're supposed to be participating and working on ourselves, working on our connection, working on raising our consciousness. There's work to be done here, and sitting around and just I don't know waiting for it to happen. I think we're going to end up with a lot of disappointed people come to 21st of December 2012 if that's for those who are in that mindset.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's the same thing with the Rapture or Y2K or the whole Heaven's Gate thing. It's like, I mean, it's just really pulling one into a belief that is not really anchored in the lessons that nature teaches us. Just observing nature, shows us more about our experience here than anything else, in my view. And that's where, we learn the most. I mean, humans have a way and ideas and philosophies and belief systems and all, but if it's not somehow in resonance with nature and the where our feet are and what air we're breathing and where we are right here and right now, um, I think it leads to disappointment on top of, not participating and co-creating, just expecting that the time will come and it'll just happen. And, the thing is, there are rays of, unity consciousness energies, just Hieros, Gamos, sacred union energies coming into the planet from the cosmos. The
Mm.
cosmos absolutely and totally supports this process that we're in. But, participation is just, tapping into it and aligning with it and recognizing it and knowing what it means to be aligned with it, knowing that integrity and treating others, I mean, just it comes down to these things that, are so crucial. And, there's information wars that distract people so much that they don't even care how they treat people anymore. It's just about who's right and who's wrong when it comes to conspiracy and spirituality. But the whole point of conspiracy is to wake us up from the deception. The whole point of, waking up from religion is to understand that every moment is sacred and we're here to unify. So to see so much happening and so much energy being distracted into the arguments about it, almost is the whole point of what waking up means, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Divide and conquer is alive and well in the conspiracy world, in the New Age movement, as just as much as anywhere else. And you know, if you're a 9/11 truther, you're not supposed to be into something else. You know, I mean, it's yeah. I don't even know how to explain it. You just did it perfectly. So,
Oh,
well done.
with what you said, because I'm like, God, I hope, I mean, I make sense. And I know gosh, we speak the same language in so many ways, but yeah, I just love what you said too about, people are going to be disappointed. It's like, it's all projection. It's similar to when people can really break this down to their own personal lives. What happens when you meet somebody, you have a crush and you fall in love and you project that they're your twin flame or your soulmate, and then you actually get to know them. It's like, be in the moment, be in the now, and be just honest with what you do know right in front of you. I mean, we all are psychic enough to be able to see sort of short-term energies to just kind of protect us. And but it's really about the moment that we're in. It's like an artist. You can't get to the end of the painting until you put the necessary strokes down. We're not here to wait for anything. We're here to create. Make
Create.
it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Abraham Hicks, and he says that we are the leading edge creators. And I really got to a point earlier this year where I completely understood why, for me anyway, it made perfect sense, why there was so little information about what happens post 2012. You know, the predictions and the prophecies that we've had for years, nothing seems to go beyond 2012 too much. And I think it's because we haven't actively, consciously created it yet. We've
Yeah.
stopped. You know, there's this huge wall within our own consciousness on the 21st of December 2012. And we've not put enough creative conscious energy into what this might look like. It's like we're going to wait and see what it looks like on the other side.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think it's interesting because on top of that, the looking glass technology supposedly couldn't read anything that's it's like all blank. And of course that's when the Mayan calendar ends, and it's all these endings, but really it's the end of time. It's the end of the time matrix, the time controls. And this is the opportunity. Doesn't mean that, I mean, people who aren't ready will continue in that time loop. That's why there's time travel, I feel, is because it's a time loop and it's kind of this spinning circle.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sort of connected to the zodiac wheel, and it's sort of like our experience of duality, the tree of good and evil, during that phase of just sort of learning from trial and error and karma, and just, understanding good and evil to grow, is a part of that time control and the zodiac. And this window is like, the wheel of necessity, the zodiac. That's kind of when the time is up, when enough souls should be evolved enough to know the difference between good and evil and know who they are within themselves.
So
And
the end of time should in fact be taken literally. It's the end of linear time.
right. And that's how I see it. And that includes the end of the necessity of the time loop, which I associate with the zodiac and time travel and time control technologies, because time in a sense is an invention. It's something to allow us to pay attention to dates and experiences and recall things so that we're learning lessons, and so we're balancing karma. So we put our foot in good and evil to the point where we know which works for us and who we truly are, and we are almost scared into seeing what it's like to not be doing good and what that can lead to. That's why we wear so many different hats in our past lives. We're all sorts of things. But this is the time of graduation, is this 2012 period, where we can leave that time loop, which the Mayans predicted, and just and other things that I've read and just deep in my own intuition have seen, even before I read this stuff, is that we lift out of the time loop, but those who aren't ready continue. And the reason that there's time travel is because the time loop is detectable by looking glass technologies and time travel and these gray alien technologies, because in a sense, this is not a real flow. We're dealing with life and death, and we're dealing with aging, and that's not really, the truth of what we're capable of. When we exit this place and we've learned whatever lessons and we break free of the archonic forces and we've mastered, ourselves enough to be able to transcend the archonic forces, not the earth, but the archonic forces, that's when we start to experience, this whole other thing. and it can't really, be viewed or predicted because it's so free of a linear imprint that the time loop has that time travel is able to observe.
Yeah, I mean, even aging as evidence of linear time being a real thing, there's a counter argument to that too, because when you look at people who have got Alzheimer's, for example, and they, spend months at a time believing that they're 5 years old, they start to youthen? What's the word? They start to look younger. Um, there was experiments done by putting, they redecorated a nursing home, and in sort of World War II decor, they got the clothes, they played the music, because that was when most of the residents were in their prime, in their early 20s. And what happened over a period of time was all their health improved. They started dropping off their meds just by listening to the music of their youth, dressing in the clothes of their youth, um, being surrounded by the decor, and really starting to get a sense of of remembering what that felt like. Their health improved, and they started. Some of them even their hair started to go back to its regular color. So, what does that tell us about time and aging?
Right. I mean, it's in a sense, it's kind of controlled because, it's all programs. It's like set up to believe a certain thing, and it's sort of, like DNA unfolding or like the seed of a flower. It goes through different stages, and then it blooms, and then it starts to wither away. I mean, there is that kind of timing, but at the same time, a seed is planted, it comes back every year. It, in a sense, has some level of immortality within, a cycle or a season, based on the year.
Mm.
Like humans, when they allow that understanding within their soul to sort of move at a quicker rate of the whole death, regeneration, rebirth, we go through that on a soul level, and we can go through a numerous amount of deaths within one physical body. And sometimes those deaths are necessary in order to regenerate and to reverse aging. So if we lose some kind of memory of how old we are, in a sense, it's tricking the body to go in that cycle to go to, maybe where it was before. So
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense. And on a sort of multidimensional level, it's also interesting because if one is in one personality and gets like stabbed or injured in that particular personality, when they shift personalities and they're in a completely different persona, those injuries are gone. It's like they could be injured in one, I guess they call it alter, but I'm talking about, when I used to study psychology and like Sybil, we weren't, dealing with government mind control sort of topic back then, or I wasn't when
Yeah,
I
no, I
was.
saw some studies on that, and they were talking to people with multiple personalities, and even eye color would change between personalities, or diabetes from one moment to the next. Things that normally would take weeks to register on, medical equipment with blood tests, they were changing in the moment that the personality changed. That's what you're
And
talking
that,
about?
yeah. and and that's why I think deprogramming is really where it's at, and just really being in the now and understanding zero point energy in the unified field, because in that you know one's sort of free of all that other stuff, and that's what lifts one out of that sort of time control and just the death reincarnation stuff, and just this sort of cycle that we've been stuck in, because how it really can be, which we talked about on Oculus, is able to come and go as we please from the physical without this sort of lower creator god and these agendas that are trying to keep us trapped so that we can't ascend beyond the seven maybe heavens and hells of this particular sort of bubble that
Mm-hmm.
that includes the aura, which we can break free of. And so that's awesome that we're sharing those stories, because that just proves that if we can, I wouldn't say trick ourselves, but just, recognize what we've bought into, and it's ingrained in our DNA or just in our culture. It's like thousands and thousands of years old. It's been passed down to us. If we can really consciously, remove ourselves from that programming and embrace our inner child and just really trust what is possible, or just be open.
All that kind of stuff. It's interesting because, I noticed that even when I meditate regularly, I look younger, and it's because part of uh, part of my meditation process was to uh, find out what my optimal physical age was based on um, endocrine system production. It turned
Mm-hmm.
out to be 26. That's the number that came to me in a meditation. So, you know, every time I meditated, you'd reinforce that. And I looked at for a while, while I was doing those meditations. And I need to get back to that. That reminds me, because I don't anymore.
All right. I got to get disciplined too a little bit.
So, what do you do? How do you connect with the earth? How do you connect with your own inner guidance? What's your process? Do you share that?
Do I want to share that?
Mm.
Oh yeah, sure. Um, well, gosh. I just am always in deep processes, just sort of, looking within a lot. I mean, like a lot. I use
Mm.
tarot to assist me. I've been using a Mother Peace Circle deck for more than 20 years. Or maybe 15. I don't think 20. I don't even know how old I am right now. But I mean for a long time. And the I Ching, has been a great guide, but where I've really learned everything, is from nature. And just my own personal alarm system in my own being, just how I just sort of feel things out. um, just am very sensitive. I've always been very sensitive. So I just turn everything, inward to just keep myself in check, to, determine, what's coming at me, if it resonates or not. And, where and how I keep sort of the physical vessel clear is, yeah, connecting with nature, just watching what I eat. Um, but I mean, I find it such a natural thing that I mean, I just make it a practice in my, conversations that I have with people, just in the way I relate to my children. And if I feel I've, gotten a bit out of balance, or maybe I raised my voice, maybe I did something that was off,
Mm-hmm.
I just take the time every day to just take a strong look at me and just work out the kinks, and just, work on areas that I know I need to work on. So, I mean, I'm just devoted to a strong level of self-honesty. And spending time in nature just kind of gives me that grounding and that clear seeing, because, nature really humbles a person. It really just, helps one find that oneness with everything too. So between just the self honesty, connecting with nature, and just, just staying in universal love towards others, even though, we all have problems with people and snicker under our breath and at times can be judgmental here and there. I'm not perfect, but, I consciously bring it into a space of universal love and acceptance, and just really work at just, I don't know, me. I've always been big on the processing. It's just been just the way I've always been, I guess. So that's what does it, because I'm afraid if I get out of that, then I'm not being held accountable, and I just refuse to be a victim. So I want to take responsibility for whatever I'm reflecting outside of myself, and just really work with energy on that level.
You mentioned the word archon before, an archontic influence. I guess the way that that plays out in our lives, in our 3D lives, is, the presence of what we would call psychopaths and psychopathic behavior. So how do you deal with those energies when they come into your awareness?
Well, I used to let it really affect me. I mean, I guess my first phase was I used to cry and cry and cry and cry, and just took it so personally, and just could not handle it. I was bedridden. I couldn't get grounded, and it was just one thing after another, and I felt so attacked, and I thought, man, I must have really crappy karma or something. And then I went to a, psychic institute, and I just, really studied my energies, and just got as, just manifested a lot of people reflecting back to me what I was going through without, going out of my way to sign up for it. And they just said, this is not about karma. Like, you're just, what you're here to do, you're just under attack. I don't know. They just helped me understand it. So I wasn't like, I moved out of being hard on myself, even though I still take self responsibility, to my perceptions and attitude. I really was able to understand that, this is a major insult, and we're bombarded with it. So I knew that I couldn't get rid of those energies. I had to be senior to them. I, in a sense, had to, kind of be immune to them. Kind of, I always compared it to just like a camper who's surrounded by mosquitoes. You can't kill the mosquito population, you can't make it go away, but you can certainly work with it and make yourself more comfortable by being prepared. So I just got stronger and stronger, and I let the parts of me that felt weakened or thrown out of balance, I just faced it head on, and I just woken myself to just standing in my power and getting back up on my feet and refusing to be um, pushed over or controlled or belittled, and I just fought back. But the second after the crying was the screaming. I mean, I went through all. Now I'm just more neutrality. I wouldn't say screaming as in like a mad, crazy woman, but just if I felt attacked, if I needed to defend my space, it's just like, whoa, Now, I mean, I feel like I've initiated myself out of a lot of the archonic stuff. I feel more free of them than I've ever felt. And all the different human agents that they worked through, I guess you could call it.
Do you feel like you can see them coming now?
Yeah, and I feel like my spiritual immune system is really activated. It can smell trouble. It's like, yep, I've been through that one. I know that one. I know that energy. I've already conquered it in a sense. I used to call them gatekeepers. I felt like I was going into the underworld mother womb to help purify her, but all these archonic control systems were in place. And so every time I got over one, it's like I felt like later on, if I felt them coming at me, it's like I'm already familiar with that one. It doesn't penetrate. There's nothing in me that is a receptor to it or vulnerable to it or weakened to it. I just strengthen those parts. And so I'm not saying I don't have more to go, but I've never felt this free ever in my life. I mean, for maybe many, 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 many lifetimes. It's unbelievable. Like around 2006 and beyond was when I started to heal, actually after the Mars recruitment, when I broke free of that. And before that, it was like I was suffocating, and like every day was painful and difficult to get through. I was so close to death constantly. And I'm not saying this as a victim. It's just, this is about facing the archonic forces head on. Some of us sign up for it. Some of us don't even notice that they're influencing us, and we don't even know that we're being controlled. Whereas for me, I'm like allergic to being controlled. So I cried through it. I screamed through it. And I just made it my life's work to talk about it because it keeps me, in the flow so that, it just helps me somehow. Handle it differently, of course, but that's just how I handled it.
I mean, I feel that I'm at the point now where I can see them coming, and they reveal themselves very quickly. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I guess I'm in the same boat. It's like, yeah, you know what? Been there, done that. Don't need to play that game anymore. I was on that merry-go-round for a while, and know that it's okay to not invite that into my life, or to not to not participate, and that I'm not. How can I put this? It's not about judgment and about non-acceptance. How can I put it?
Oh, I understand.
The oneness means I have to include everything and everyone. No, I don't. And I don't have to include that.
Wait, say that last.
That being in a state of or understanding oneness, then it means you include everybody and everything. And it's like, no, it doesn't. Not for me. It's not about having to invite those energies into your life and deal with them. If you've done that, you've done that. You can move on.
Yeah, that's how the human body works. It purges. The immune system recognizes a virus it's already had. It has a boundary up. It has a force field of protection. If the aura is really strong, it doesn't invite disease in. So archons to me are like spiritual germs, and so the oneness is that, yeah, they're a symptom perhaps of global imbalance. But no, we don't need to invite it in because we don't need to be a part of that imbalance. I look at this like an activated, the immune system of the planet that, is here to not be susceptible and to be strengthened because they don't need to be amongst us. They have whatever function they have, and so I don't have judgment either. They can actually help wake people up because they force you to know who you are and to access your power and strength and integrity and wisdom and spirit and all that. But no, I mean, I agree with you. It's like maybe where I used to be lured into maybe trying to fix people or expose myself to archonic forces, just because I was compassionate and maybe thought I could. I just have a boundary now.
I love that. I love that analogy. The immune system. That's really good. That's really good.
Yeah, and I think in a way, when you were talking, I was like me. I mean, don't you feel in a sense you've exhausted them? It's like you can't.
Yes, yes. And it's true that though that they do provide you with an opportunity to really get in touch with yourself and with your own power and your own knowing and your intuition and nothing quite like it actually confronts you in such a way that allows you to tap into who you really are than being confronted with archontic influence and being confronted with that psychopathic mindset. And because it can be so subtle. And yet for you, when you really see it and understand it, you're screaming. You're screaming, watch out, red light. And others around you can be going, I don't get it. It's, isn't they're so charming. They're so, look at that smile. And they're not seeing what you're seeing. So firstly, you question yourself, and then you go through this whole process, but then and you dig deeper and deeper and deeper. And when you go through that process, you come out of it so much stronger. So they
Oh,
absolutely play a role and serve a purpose.
I totally agree. I mean, I feel like just it sort of hit me as you were talking. They either put you to sleep or they wake you up. They can either, make you more of like in a trance, sort of serving their agenda, or the reaction to feeling something so not true to who one is launches them into this, just need to protect oneself and to strengthen whatever they hook into or wherever they, make it difficult. And so, I chose the route of I don't like it. I feel it. It's not me. I'm not being lured into it. It's not putting me in a trance. It's actually repelling me. And I feel an immense reaction. You're right. It's like other people kind of go along with it. They're like, what's wrong with you? And I wouldn't say like I was screaming to where people thought I was crazy, but it was like, whether it be being lured down a path I didn't want to go and needing to fight for my rights and having to get loud. I would say that level of, having to be loud, but it wasn't, I mean, of course, there were times where there was terror and like having, to protect myself from, you know, those that could probably take my life, but those are different stories. But yeah, it's like, it's just having that boundary or just like, no, I will not, that refusal. And like you said, going through that self doubt and just, staying in connection to spirit and saying, no matter how alienated or misunderstood or even ostracized I am, this is the only thing that feels right. So be it if people don't get it. And I wasn't in judgment of them going along with archonic stuff either. It was just I was still just, trying to just feel good enough within myself to be true to who I am. And then I love how you said that because after that, which I've gotten over in the last couple of years, now I'm much more solid and I have a lot more appreciation for myself rather than being hard on myself like I'm very isolated about it.
And you learn how to trust your own intuition, your own instincts. So much more.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah. And I think these. It feels to me like the archontic influence on the planet as a whole in this experience that we're having is getting weaker on one level. Even though what looks to be like the physical manifestations of them, the powers that be, that kind of thing, is ramping up. I feel like it's ramping up in order to make uh, even the balance for the fact that it's lessening on an energetic level. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like, just the point of breakdown and when something's rising to its ultimate peak, it's also when it's weakening the most, in a
Yes.
sense. Like when somebody's about to have a nervous breakdown, they're actually about to have a breakthrough. But it's like at that point when they feel like they can't take it anymore, just like when we feel in the clutches of those dark forces the most, or we feel the agendas are pumping up to their extreme, it's almost like, you know, it's like the grand finale of the theater act. Now the curtain's about to go down or something. It's like I just feel that increase, but it's followed by almost a crumbling or a cracking open because that tension is either going to lead people astray or it's going to lead to awakening. And because one can't, the first initial energy within us is spirit, you know, it's more likely going to be the breakthrough than many, going into the grips of it even more. So,
Well, if this all relies on our focus and energy to keep it even in place, if it's that kind of energetic illusion and it feeds off our energy, then the
oh,
fact that they've ramped up the the focus to grab our energy means they need more of it. So something's slipping away. Does that?
Wait, say that last part.
Well, how can I put it? Uh, 10, 15 years ago, the powers that be could pretty much go about their business without anybody noticing, and very few people even were aware of terms like the cabal and the Illuminati and the powers that be and the New World Order. Um, and they could pretty much do what they please and no one took any notice. Now they're almost advertising what they're going to do before they do it in order to grab our attention and our energy to feed it. Why? So the question for me is always why? Why are they doing that? It's like for the way they made 9/11 so obvious. Why? Why? If you've got the ability to pull that off, why do it with so many holes in it?
Yeah, I was thinking, they're shooting themselves in the foot, but they must be doing that on purpose. Why would they, in a way, some of their philosophy is we're making it so obvious that if you don't get up and do something about it, then you're responsible for your own, downfall. I mean, that's what some, supposed members of the Illuminati have said, that we are purposely making it obvious, to give, I guess from the higher order of the Illuminati, for some of them, they consider it to assist us in waking up. But the ones that do it on a need to know basis don't need to know the larger picture. They're just here to just create negative polarity. But it's getting more obvious in a sense because they want, either our attention on the information war or the whole distraction from our spiritual development with more focus on, oh my gosh, can you believe what they're doing now? Where, I mean, it's shock value. It's still taking energy, I mean, they harvest energy that's between casual, they harvest energy that isn't fully in alignment. Anything that's not connecting directly to source, anytime we're not fully connected to our own soul energy and our own power, invites something else to come in. So I feel like at this stage in the game, they are advertising because so many beings, are already awakened to it that, at this phase, we could just get lost in the chaos of, people waking up and people trying to sort it out. Because if they were just events that they could pull off, people would think it was natural. Say, oh, yeah, there is a war on terror, and we'd be going along with the facade. Or that is a natural disaster when really it's HARP. But if they put enough holes in it, it almost creates a whole nother ball of chaos energy for them to feed on. That in a sense, we almost have to be immune to even the reaction and start to just get into, an awareness that, isn't feeding the drama, because what once was we can get away with this stuff and everybody thinks this is natural because they're doing it hidden. It's kind of like after somebody finds out their husband's been cheating, or all of a sudden there's a love triangle. Then it's the drama, and that drains everybody's energy. And then it's the I'm moving on, and it's time to be free of this. And some people don't want to leave the drama. It's kind of like, we've hit a wall with them being hidden because they did shoot themselves in the foot. And now because this cycle period is over, as far as the Stargates, the chaos factor is enough to distract us from where our attention should be. And I think, there's reasons that I could speculate on, kind of babble about, but I just find it so interesting as well that, they are advertising so much of this.
Yeah, I think far too many of us are addicted to the drama, and I think that's the point, is to get us addicted to the drama. And like you say, exactly like you say, distract us from our own spiritual evolution, really. And that's what this is all about, our spiritual evolution. And I'm beginning to think more and more that what we're seeing in public realm, that there's probably very, very little validity to any of it. And that it may all come down to a complete distraction.
That's what I'm thinking, because, it's moving the nature of war, between this religion and that religion, or this race and that race, or this country and that country. Now that the war has shifted to a war of consciousness, between invisible weaponry and, our own spiritual development, they have to kind of advertise for it, because that's where we're going to all fight and still live in separation. Not a lot of us are buying into the necessity of these more older ways of handling problems, Now it's in the arena of you're nuts, you're a conspiracy theorist, and we're still following now we're at a war with what is really truth. And so I think that's just as much a distraction as these ridiculous wars throughout history. So I'm totally agree.
Oh, well, so much for a conversation where we might, come up with different scenarios because we're actually coming up with the same ones over and over again. So it's funny. I wasn't expecting us to be in total agreement the way we have been.
I know it's funny. It's like no debate. We're just like
Yeah, no debate.
in different words. Yeah, yeah, that's it.
Oh, funny. So, just in terms of growing up with the name that you grew up with and the family you grew up in, how how connected, how awake, how I mean, are you even in your family? Are you the conspiracy nut?
Well, yeah, that's what it looks like. I mean, I'm still waiting for somebody else to pop up, talking about the kind of stuff that, even it mentions the word ET. I mean, there's none of it. But when I'm around family, I just can't get over how much I love them. I mean, I really think they're really good people and they mean well. And you know, there's not a lot of like hidden secrets or weird. I mean, there's nothing that raises red flags. My friends grew up knowing my family. My partner just went to a family reunion with me, and he was really blown away. He's just like, "My God, this is the most down to earth, sort of humble, just really heart based, people." I mean, a lot of people might think it's completely different, um, and a lot of people might think, "Oh, she's mind controlled, and that's just what she thinks it is." I mean, I've been tested and probed for being mind controlled or being, all this type of stuff. I've put myself through that so that if I am in public, I'm not misrepresenting myself or anything. I mean, I'll admit the gray areas and what I don't know, and I'll speak what resonates with me and what I feel is truth. But I know that I'm not being screwed with, and I've made sure of that by, like I said, getting checked out a lot by sound technologies and all sorts of things. Um, but yes, I'm the only one in the family who will touch the UFO topic, the treaties with Eisenhower. I'm definitely, exposing military industrial complex stuff that is layers beneath or like hidden layers that I've never heard about in the family. Alternative Three, which is about Mars colonies, was established during the Eisenhower administration. I bring up, the recruitment to Mars, and I'm not hearing anything like, oh yeah, wow, that must be connected to this that happened. There's no putting the puzzle pieces together with any family. But I'm not seeing a bunch of sinister people hiding anything either. I just don't think they know, and I think that um, if they do, then maybe they're trying to protect our generation. And I'm just basically saying, if that's the case, we don't need protection, and truth is more important than anything else. And I guess this is, what my role is. But there's nobody else in my family that's doing this. They've got their own part to play, I guess. I just thought I might, maybe have a cousin or a sister or somebody. But they're very open and supportive, and I think, there's a hidden understanding and acknowledgement and a mutual respect. I wouldn't want them to take this part on anyway. I'm kind of glad it's me, so it's fine.
But no experiences growing up that made you question things?
Well, I mean, I just kept hearing about rumors about Eisenhower and extraterrestrials, and I questioned it, with at least my immediate family, my mom and I didn't hear a thing, and I'm not about to say, oh, I think she was lying. I don't know because I'm pretty intuitive, and I couldn't even read it. I'm like, and I'm kind of detached enough to not be biased. I'm not trying to protect anybody, and I'm certainly not going to slam anybody either. I'm just going to be honest. Um, but yeah, I mean, surprisingly enough, I'm not like a runaway kid. I didn't get rejected from the family. With the amount of family gatherings I've been to and exposure I've had to the Eisenhower family, there hasn't been anything, but I'll introduce subjects like 9/11 and this and that. And, I wouldn't say they're heavy duty triggers. It's just their attention is on other things. And, the fact that I'm allowed to speak about this stuff and I haven't been persecuted by any family. I know that they're not hiding anything either because nobody has gotten down on me for what I do. I think that there's just a hidden acknowledgement that, let Laura do what she's going to do. This is what we're doing. And instead of wasting our family gatherings on getting into big debates about it, we just share mutual respect and leave it at that. And I wish I had, because my gosh, those are just gatherings I'm speaking of right now. I wish I had something I could share about growing up. I heard this or I heard that. And I always search my memory. I mean, I do have a distant relative who people might know named Ed Grimsley, who does the night vision goggles. He's like my fifth cousin. And he said that I think his father, who knew Mamie, had mentioned extraterrestrials being real. So I only have like, very outside contacts that can validate stuff. And then I heard Nixon knew a lot about extraterrestrials and, as well as Eisenhower. But no, I'm not getting anything from family. And it's weird.
Wouldn't it be nice if your grandfather left something behind, or your great grandfather left something behind, just for the family, or revealed all his secrets?
And what's interesting is he left a time capsule in the walls of the Gettysburg Farm to be open in 2050 that has all these secrets. So believe me, I want to go with a sledgehammer every time I'm in the Pennsylvania area to that
I
farm.
bet you do. Oh.
Yeah. I mean, somehow he locked it away. This was not anything he really shared with family. Um, and I think he really just wanted to protect them because, people were getting killed for exposing certain things. And I think it might have been easier or better during that time for there to be, a certain level of secrecy. But my generation that isn't kind of locked up in that type of stuff, I don't have, I never met him. I met Mamie, but I'm not really in line with, whatever those agreements or protections were. I've just kind of been vulnerable. And what I've come to understand is based on what happened outside of the family, which was the Mars recruitment, that none of the other family members were involved.
So why you? Do you know?
I have no idea. I think, I guess Looking Glass Technologies were involved. They somehow could tap into what I was here to do, or maybe things about the past. I've always had a strong devotion to the Sophia energy and Gaia and just global transformation. And, that's, why I refused to go. But they kind of played that into it to try and get me to go. I think that they knew I was so devoted to this because it's a universal energy. Anybody can tap into it. It's not anything to claim as an identity. But I think what I was told and what was sort of leaked to me was that they know that that's what I'm all about. And somehow they either wanted to use it or take it with them or take it off this planet because it might, start to unify with others of like mind. And it might create something that I think we're doing right now. Especially when I was on the Oculus show, I'm like, yeah, this is the kind of stuff they don't want us to do. When we all gather together and we talk about this stuff.
Mm. Has there been any repercussions for you by saying no? And were you threatened, go or else?
Well, my partner at the time said that if you don't go, they're going to kidnap you because you kind of don't have a choice. And there was a lot of different forces on me that I almost got used to. But when I started to expose them, a lot of that heaviness started to lift from me because I guess, what happened was they didn't expect me to figure out what they were up to. I mean, the Mars recruitment was connected to my partner talking to something he called the patrons, which he considered to be an extraterrestrial race that was giving him information about going to Mars and helping him hook up with the right scientists and technologies for us to go. And what I was tapping into was that he's dealing with a group of people because he was going to secret meetings that have their hands on these technologies like artificial telepathy. They do MyLabs. They use, this to kind of make it look like an abduction or some sort of, communication, and it's not real.
Yep.
I didn't do any of it. So I started to do research about the names that he was talking to. They all had cover occupations. Nothing was revealing anything, that raised a, oh my gosh, this is it. Until like 2 weeks later, I had to search and search and search, and I wasn't going to give up. And then I started to see the names of the people he was mentioning associated with things like HARP technology, artificial telepathy, and MyLabs, and psychotronic weapons. And I was like, yes, that's exactly what I needed to read because I was onto them. But like, it was all presented to me as, oh, we need to protect you. It's all about protecting you. And it was a lie, we'll give you this great position and you can do this and you can do that. Kind of like probably what they did to Ike when Rockefeller pushed him into the presidency or led him to believe that he even won the Second World War or whatever, because, the war just morphed into this kind of mind control stuff. But there was big red flags. And then I had a very prophetic dream that I was being taken up into a ship and I had a choice. Some voice from the sky said, you have a choice. And I chose to stay on Earth. And so all these different things were alerting me to the level of falseness in this whole, agenda. And they didn't expect me to find out. So when I started to talk about it, and I talked about it extra when I heard the phone clicking, because I'm like, okay, is that, am I bugged? I don't know. All of a sudden, when I started to bring a voice to it, they really started to leave me alone. So the whole kidnapping thing started to freak me out a lot less because I'm like, okay, I feel more protected because people know that, there's. I think it's going to be hard for them to just take me away. Whereas if I was quiet or if I was in fear, I might be susceptible. But I decided, just be free, speak your truth. And I certainly am not afraid of them because they're a false system. It's like it's all artificial stuff that spirit can just collapse. And the whole thing behind these agendas is to separate us from our natural connection to source.
Mm-hmm.
As long as they do that, they have control. But as long as we actually don't allow that, they're afraid of us. That's why they go to all this trouble.
Yeah, I will agree with that. Well, Laura, there's many of us out there who are very, very grateful you didn't go anywhere and that you're doing exactly what you're doing.
Thanks.
It's been a real pleasure talking to you, and I hope we can do it again, and perhaps even on a radio show where we
That,
can speak to the public as well and get you to answer people's calls.
I'd love that.
Lovely.
Any collaborate or connect would be wonderful. So thank you for having me too.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you very much.